Hello, everyone. Kris Fleming with KFP Investors here. And I am here with my new dear friend, Michael Weiss. We met at an Andy Teasley class in Court Madera, California. And Michael immediately impressed me with all of his knowledge about financial calculators and note investing and note creation and calculating rates of return. He also amused me, kept me awake. No offense, Andy, and just don't do a good job of sitting still. But Michael also kept me awake with his excellent sense of humor during our class. So, Michael, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, good. Well, before we get in too far, first of all, I want to address Michael asked me if I am homeless. I am not. This is my office building that is still under construction, but I couldn't stand to work at my dining room table anymore. So as soon as we had electricity and internet in the office, I moved in. So you can make fun of me if you want to. It's okay. I make fun of me too. I'm calling it rustic. So, KFP Investors LLC does not give legal, tax, economic, or investment advice. KFP Investors disclaims all liability for the action or inaction taken or not taken as a result of communications from or to its employees, contractors, clients, prospective clients, or participants. Each person should consult their own counsel, accountant, and other advisors as to legal, tax, economic, investment, and related matters. And of course, we will never share your personal information to vendors or third parties without your consent, like checking your credit. All right. Thanks for letting me get that out of the way. Speaking of lawyers, right? We always have to get that done. So, Michael, tell us a little bit about your real estate endeavors. Talk to us about your investment and what are you doing now? How did you get to where you are?
Well, I started back in 1992. I was living in Fort Lauderdale. My dad had recently passed away, and I was living in LA prior to that. And then mom and dad had a place down in Florida. Dad passed, and he was my rock. He was my hero, everything. And I kind of went into a tailspin. It wasn't easy. Kind of wearing, sunglasses 24 hours a day for about 2 years. And I'd worked in corporate America prior to that, selling computers. And Dad worked in corporate, and I wanted to get out. I didn't want to end up like he ended up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up getting a job down in Fort Lauderdale as a waiter. Had a decent personality then. And I was able to talk my way into getting a job, and then learned a lot very quickly. Show up, brush your teeth, be on time, smile, say please and thank you. And most people will adjust for your inexperience.
Mm-hmm.
And they were quite nice. So bear with me. I have a lozenge, and they're still getting over COVID a little bit. So anyway, I was working as a waiter, and I was just perusing the want ads one day, not looking for a job, just looking. And I came across one of those ads that says, "We buy houses."
Mm-hmm.
And I called on it. And long story short, we were friends for 30 years.
That is a very long story, very short.
Very long, very short. And my first mentor, Bill, and down in Fort Lauderdale, and he showed me what to do, what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
Some of which I listened to, some of which I was too arrogant to listen to. And so I had to learn that lesson, to take good advice and not think that you know everything or even anything in my case. And they said, do X. So I said, okay. Mm-hmm. I just treated him like a surrogate father. Mm-hmm. Wasn't that much older than I, but if he said, do some mailers, I did some mailers. Mm-hmm. And I folded up little blue pieces of paper and I hand wrote them and I stamped them and I mailed them out. And after a few weeks, I got a couple of bites. People would call back and say, you want to buy my house? Yeah, I'll come over. Anyway, one of them was a woman who had a house for sale. Actually, it was, I put an ad also in the legal newspaper.
Okay.
Because no one else advertises there. Mm-hmm. And in 92, you didn't have as many investors as you do today. Mm-hmm. Real estate is quite popular now. Back then, less so. Mm-hmm. But I actually got a call from the lawyer who asked me, are you legit? I said, yes, I'm legit. He says, okay.
As any good scam artist would say, right? Yeah. Of course I'm legit. Right. Yeah.
Are you legit? Well, that's a serious question. Yes, of course.
Obviously so. I'm in the newspaper.
So we just chatted for 5 minutes, most of which, 4 minutes and 59 seconds was his, and I just listened a lot, which is something Bill told me, to shut up and listen. Mm-hmm. And I still have a hard time with that. So Bill coached me quite a bit and met with this lady. Her name was Pat. And she had a house, and we met over in front of the house, this little 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house in Hallandale Beach, Florida. And it was vacant. It was in decent shape, didn't really need anything as far as I knew, but then I didn't know anything. And Pat would not go in the house. She would go up to the step, but she wouldn't go inside the house. So I went in the house, looked around. I'll tell you, she was divorced, and her ex-husband, the reason for the divorce is her husband used to hit her inside the house. So she would not go back inside that house. Very painful for her. Understandable. Mm-hmm. So I went around, looked around, I counted the ceilings and the walls and the floors, and I didn't know what I was looking at.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I took pictures or not. Yes, I did. I took pictures with a regular camera. We didn't have camera phones back then.
Right.
And I brought the pictures to Bill. Yeah, something like that. It was a little, And anyway, we agreed. We had a handshake. She had about a $20,000 VA mortgage on it, and it was 11%. Payment was like $300 a month, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And I think there were about 20 years to go. 2021. Yeah.
Can you can you repeat that for the folks in the back? This was a VA loan at what rate?
It was at 11%.
11. That's 2 ones. 11%.
Yeah, 2 ones. Okay. Yes, 11%. Right.
Well, and VA loans are known to have the lowest rate around. So I just want to make sure everybody heard that.
So they got they got this loan in whenever the rates were 11%. Yeah. And they kept it, but it was only a $300 payment because it was a $20,000 balance.
Right.
So we negotiated. It took about a minute. I said, okay, I'll buy it. Because I had spoken to Bill before, I said, how do I buy it? He said, just take over the payments. I said, okay, great. What's that? And he explained to me, why would I take over the payments? And he explained to me what taking over the payments would do for the seller and would do for me. What it would do for the seller was it would give them relief from making their next payment.
Yeah.
So the benefit to her was she went from making a $300 payment on an empty house to me making the payment plus giving her a $200 a month payment on top of that as a second mortgage to cover the equity. So we paid $30,000 for the house, nothing down, took over the payments, and gave her a second mortgage for $200 a month, about $10,800 in total, till paid, no interest. I was so happy. I got a house.
Yeah.
And then we didn't even have a contract. We had no contract, nothing in writing. So I made arrangements to get one day off from the waiting tables. And I went to a closing, my first closing. I have a degree in finance and economics. I didn't know what a closing was. I didn't know what closing costs were. Nothing, not a thing. Clueless. And I found out what closing costs were. Closing costs were about $3,000. That's what they were. That's the old joke. And so I put that on my credit card with the attorney who closed the deal. And I got the keys and I got a deed and I found myself the proud owner of a house. And then I freaked out because now I'm going, I have a $500 a month payment to make next month.
Yeah.
How am I going to make that? So I called Bill. Hey, Bill, how do I rent the house? He says, well, you put an ad in the paper. Again, newspaper. Not so much today. Found a tenant, rented it for about $700. Got first, last, and security deposit. So it was enough to get a little bit of my $3,000 closing costs back. They moved in. I'll shorten the story. They stayed there for about till I sold the house, about 18 months later.
Okay.
Let me back up a second. I was down in Florida, living in an apartment, paying $600 a month rent. And that's important for this because what I did next surprised me and shocked Bill because I did a 1031 exchange without even knowing I was doing a 1031 exchange.
Oh, yeah?
So I was door knocking a particular area and I found an 8-unit apartment building, 8 one bedrooms. And the owner's name was Alex. And Alex is 75 and owned it free and clear and was tired of the thrill of management, as one of my mentors calls it. And so I proceeded to say, Alex, I will give you my house that's rented with positive cash flow as a down payment on this 8-unit. And we talked for a few hours, got to know each other a little bit. Then he said, okay. So at that time, I had about $25,000 in equity in that house. So I deeded him the house. He deeded me the apartment building, and he carried the balance at 8% for 20 years.
Wow.
Then I moved into one of the vacant units. There were 2 vacant units.
Okay.
And so, excuse me. So I went from paying $600 a month rent to collecting net after expenses, after paying Alex, $1,200 a month in my pocket.
Nice.
So that's an $1,800 a month spread between April to May.
Right. And 30 years ago,
So
that was a lot of money.
that was a lot. Well, I didn't have any other debt. So that enabled me to retire-ish the first time.
So that became your pocket money, your living money?
That was, well, I had a roof over my head. I had
Uh-huh.
income without having to really go outside my property. I had a big dog at the time. I had a 200-pound Mastiff,
Yeah.
and I started to look for tenants who also had big dogs, because if you have a big dog, it's difficult to find housing.
Uh-huh.
And so I could charge a little bit more rent, got a little bit more deposits, but my dog had to interview your dog. If the dogs got along, I would take your deposit. If your dog is rowdy and a problem, keep looking. So
That is the best applicant screening I have ever heard in all my life. And I've worked in this business for a long time, but that's a new one on me, and I love it.
well, I was able to get an extra 100, instead of charging $400 a month rent, I was able to get $5 from each of the other 7 occupants.
Because of their big
And
dogs.
so it worked out. Yeah, people love their dogs. I love my dog. So why not have a nice, you have a dog, you have a couple. Why
I
not?
was going to say, I don't know if you're seeing this tail
I
wagging
see
right
a
here.
tail.
Yeah.
So
he's insisting on being pet right now.
It wasn't so much tenant screening, it was dog screening. And, if you're living on the property, it's a good idea to get along with your neighbors, first of all. And if you're collecting money from them, it's also a good idea to get along with them. And so that was my first semi-retirement. And now I didn't have to work so many shifts at the restaurant. And that was the start of how I got invested in real estate. I don't really know much about the physical property. I can't swing a hammer. I can't do a roof. I don't understand the plumbing, none of that. And I have no interest in it. I'm a numbers geek and I like people. And so that works out for me. Everybody's got their niche.
Right.
And so I found what works for me. And I kept that apartment building. I lived in it for 7 years.
Wow.
And it really, so to anybody listening or watching, if you have a house, whether it's your house or an investment house, you can kind of semi-retire. Now the numbers are so much bigger today.
Yeah.
But you can semi-retire in one deal.
Well, and it was a brilliant deal that you did there too. I don't know how many people would have come up with that. So,
well, I had a great mentor, and I've had some other great mentors along the way. I was just so fortunate to have met Bill. Some people can change your life.
Yeah.
And Bill was one of them. And he's done that for a lot of people. So his legacy is wonderful. Can't say enough. Now, Bill,
I was just going to comment that that's one of the things that I love about the real estate investor community is it just seems full of people who love to share their knowledge and help one another. And you don't see a whole lot of that. Yeah.
All you have to do is ask. And then in my case, I was quite arrogant in the beginning because after I did one deal, I thought I knew everything. Turns out I didn't. And I did some other deals which I botched completely. And then I had to go back to Bill and with my tail between my legs and say, I'm ready to listen now.
Well, what are you doing now, Mike?
Well, I've been in and out of the real estate game since '92. I'd buy and exchange it to something bigger and then move into it. That works for me. Excuse me. And right now I'm living in Prescott, Arizona. My wife has passed away recently, so I'm looking for possibly a new location. I am living with a friend now because I was living with her and her house sold and closed yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So changes afoot.
Yeah.
And so I may be relocating either, I don't know, Phoenix or back east. I've lived in several places. I've lived in LA, I lived in Vegas, Fort Lauderdale. I'm originally from New York, so bounced around a bit, but I think I'm leaning towards going back east. I miss the green. It's a little brown and dusty here. The people are
Well,
sweet and
Nashville's
nice.
pretty spectacular. I invite you to evaluate that option.
I will certainly consider it. I'm going to travel to Cincinnati to visit. There's a convention I'm going to at the end of April, and I may stick around. See what happens.
I am going to that same course in April. I'm really excited about it. So,
yes, I'm looking
the
forward to
ultimate
meeting.
creative, what is it? The ultimate creative deal structuring workshop, I think is the official title. Yes, some really brilliant real estate royalty teaching us that weekend.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm also doing some private lending, some of my own and some of friends' monies. We only lend to investors. We do not lend to homeowners. I got a call yesterday. Excuse me. I got a call yesterday from someone who wants to. Hold on. Sorry. Got a call yesterday from someone. I don't know why. I'm going to turn my phone.
Should we answer it? We can all talk to him.
No, I'm turning the phone off. I'm a computer geek, but I don't understand phones. And so
got a call
doing
yesterday.
some private lending and going back into that space. I remember when I first started, one of the private hard money lenders that I met, he did not know how to use a spreadsheet. I showed him how to use a spreadsheet. And for that, he knocked 3 points off my first few loans.
Nice.
That was great. Well, at the beginning, we were paying 18% and 10 points. And why don't you explain to your borrowers, explain to your listeners how expensive that is?
Wow. I just want to make sure I heard you. 10 points and 18%.
Yes.
Wow. So for those who maybe don't know, 10 points, a point is a percentage of the loan amount as an origination fee. You pay that at closing or it gets added to the loan. So fairly typical right now would be 2 or 3, maybe 4 points, sometimes 5, depending on the risk level. So 10 points on a $100,000 loan would be $10,000. And then 18% on that.
Which means if you're borrowing 100, now 100, we weren't working on $100,000 houses. We were working on $50,000 and $60,000 houses that we could buy in the 20s and 30s and 40s. But if you take 100,000 today, 18%, that payment would be $1,500 a month, interest only, and you would net 90 of that 100 at closing. So, and there's 3 months prepayment penalty. So if you borrowed it week 1 and paid it back 3 weeks later, you still have to pay 3 months worth of interest plus the 100
Which is
back,
still
even
pretty
though you only
standard,
got 90.
Yeah.
It's expensive money, but if you structure it right, you can still make money.
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I feel like I am preaching that to anyone who will listen, that if you structure it right, it doesn't matter what the cost of funds is, as long as you are improving your position at the end of it.
Right. Yes. We borrowed, the most I borrowed from him was $30,000 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the payment was $450.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about a $75,000 house. So
Mm-hmm.
they were safe. So in the event that I couldn't or wouldn't make the payment, they would have bought a $75,000 house for $30,000, actually 27, because they took back
Right.
10 points at closing.
Right.
And so, but we got on very well, and I was able to get him for 15% and 5 points.
Wow.
Because I showed him how to do more loans using a spreadsheet and how his loans were cheaper than a bank loan for a short duration. So, and he did far more loans as a result of that.
That's fantastic.
So everybody wins.
Yes.
My intent wasn't to go in and let me see how much I can shave off my cost of money. My intent was to go in and help him.
Right. Coming from a place of
help
offering
somebody.
value.
It comes back. And I borrowed many, many thousands of dollars from the same individual. It's a long-term play. So think of it as a long-term. It's not a get rich by Thursday. You have to plan, and you have to think about why you're doing this. Why are you giving up your nights, your weekends, your days? Why are you running all over town? Why are you hustling to find money? Why are you hustling to find partners? Why do you need a title company? Why do you need a fantastic lender? Why do you need everybody on your team? Why do you need a good dog? For screening your tenants, of
for
course.
My interruptions here.
You need a good dog, in my case, to screen your tenants. But you need a team. And, I was the original lone wolf, and I had to learn that one the hard way.
Yeah.
Because as much as you think you can do it all, you probably can do some of it, but you can't do all of it. And you certainly can't do all of it as well as people who do that for a living. We found some great title people, some great mortgage people, and they were key. And then I found some other mentors along the way, and then I got lazy.
You got lazy?
I quit. I quit the real estate business. I think I quit it 4 or 5 times. It's like the 7-year itch.
Yeah.
I got bored with it. I did well relatively easily and relatively early. And it wasn't a challenge. It certainly is now, 30 plus years later. There's much more competition. There's much more money chasing deals. If you can find a deal, let me back up. You don't find a deal, you create a deal. You find out why someone is having a problem, and you try and solve it using everybody around you. I'm on exchange meetings now again. I haven't been on exchange meetings in 15 years. And it's a refresher. And it's exciting to see a lot of the younger people getting in and mixing it up. And I love their spirit and their can-do attitude. So it's energizing to be around people that have the energy. It's contagious, and that's why I'm going to Cincinnati.
I love that. So for folks just starting out in real estate today, they've recently read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and they've recently got their membership to the local REA chapter. What advice? What would your top 3 pieces of advice be for someone starting out today?
People start out today at different levels. You could be a teenager, you could be in your 20s, you could be in your 30s with a family. So one piece of advice isn't going to fit everybody.
Sure.
You could be in your 60s and just getting started. Um, find your local REIA meetings and connect there. If you're a wallflower, be a wallflower, but show up. You'll learn. There will be other wallflowers there. Talk to them. Say hi. What's in your coffee? Anything, just get a conversation started. And keep going, and keep going, and keep going. You will learn just by osmosis and by picking it up. And you will go a long way in a very short period of time. Stay connected. That's the second part. So go once, and then the second part is go again and go again and go again. And eventually find someone who will take you under their wing. Not a promoter, someone who's doing this every day. Ask them questions, talk to them, get to know them, give a damn, and ask serious questions. Talk to them, be real with them, and they will be real with you.
I'd like to add to that. Yeah, I'd like to add to that last piece. Be prepared to offer value to that person who is going to take you under their wing. So I know of one situation where a lady wanted to get into investment real estate, and she identified someone she wanted to talk to. And so, the one who was already working in real estate was very, very busy, had a whole bunch of projects going on, had kids, lots going on. And so she said, listen, you can shadow me for the day and you can ask me whatever you want to, but you have to work with me. And so they love to tell the story about how the mentee was cleaning ovens while asking questions and having conversation with the mentor, to just have an opportunity to have some of her time. So I guess I just want to say to folks, I hear a lot of, well, I'd love to take you to lunch, or I'd love to take you to coffee. And so many of these folks, they don't have time to stop for lunch or coffee. You just got to go with them and do what they're doing.
Yes, that brings back up when I first went to meet Bill. He asked me to come over, one morning at 7 a.m. Well, I didn't normally get up till about 8, so that was a challenge. So anyway, I'm at his door at 5 minutes of 7 that morning, and he was living in a townhouse at the time, and there's a peephole right about eye level, and I knocked on the door, and I heard a deep woof, and then I looked kind of through the peephole, and I saw a big brown eye looking back at me. It wasn't Bill, and it wasn't his wife. So he answered the door, and it was this gigantic Doberman who had one foot on either side of the peephole, kind of looking at me. So we bonded over the fact that we both had big dogs.
Yeah. So that's how he screened his mentees then, was dog inspection.
Yeah. He was wonderful. And I did shadow him for the day. And we went around and we looked at properties, and we met with a couple of lenders, and we met with a couple of title people. It was a full day. I was exhausted. He was twice my age, almost twice my age, and I was exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So, his energy was terrific. And he and his wife were an amazing team. And I can't thank them enough.
Mm-hmm.
So we bonded over something silly like the dogs.
Uh-huh.
But it's amazing how, like I said, one person can change your life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was very lucky to have met Bill. Otherwise, I don't know what I'd be doing today. I was bored with the computer business, and it changes every 20 minutes. There's a new thing coming out, and you have to learn this and you have to learn that. And real estate, once you understand what a contract looks like and what your intentions are and what a deed looks like. A deed is a deed is a deed most times. But if you understand the general parameters, you don't have to relearn it 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're doing things, we're doing options, we're doing leases, we're doing sellbacks, we're doing exchanges, and it's a different level, but it's very easy to go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and you don't need 100 houses.
Mm-hmm.
One of my mentors, Pete Fortunato, I'll mention him. Pete started, I think at his height, he had 34 houses that he acquired.
Mm-hmm.
Then he whittled them down and whittled them down and whittled them down to get better houses and better financing, because all he needed was a certain income level. And he got there. It took him 10 years, but he started right out of high school. And he was able to retire, really retire, not retire and travel the world and, to go to Monaco, but retire, live comfortably on his real estate rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Seems good enough for me.
I like that. So, what kind of resources are you looking for right now, Michael? What would be
Resources.
helpful to
Well,
you? Mm-hmm.
this is a people business.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a brick and mortar business. It isn't for
Mm-hmm.
me. I'm not in the construction field.
Mm-hmm.
So resources are just people who have expertise and connections. And, people I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I know people you don't know. And these people that we know other people.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's the glue.
Yeah.
The resources are the people. I don't need anything else. Can I get money? Yeah. Can I get contacts? Yes. Can I do it without people? No. And I wouldn't want to.
Yeah. So
It's fun.
are you looking to fund more deals right now? Are you buying primarily notes right now?
I am in transition right now. So I'm
Okay.
not buying anything. I'm a really picky buyer. I
Okay.
don't have to. Really picky lender too.
Yeah.
Looking for partners.
Yeah.
If someone has a need for capital,
Mm-hmm.
it can be placed. It has to be a good deal. It has
Yeah.
to make sense, because a smart lender, will protect the borrower from themselves. Because a lot of
Yes.
times they're really optimistic.
Yes.
Oh, I can do this and I can do that. And then it'll sell for 3 times what I paid for it. And they forget about things like market changes and interest rate changes and neighborhood changes. And many things go into the mix.
Right.
So I had a call yesterday from a fella who wanted to borrow some money for a condo down in Phoenix. Okay, fine. What is your intention? Well, I'm not sure. But he has to work on his lawsuit first. And then he spent 10 minutes telling me about his lawsuit. And I'm thinking, he's really not endearing himself to me.
Yeah.
So And at the end, I said, well, I don't know if we're a fit, because you know everything, and yet you've never borrowed hard money or private money before, but you're right on everything. Okay, well, if you come back, if you actually have a contract, I gave him a couple of ideas on how to structure the deal. And he said, oh, no, that wouldn't work. Okay.
I think I dated that guy a couple times in my single life.
Don't think for the seller.
Yeah.
The solution that you might think not work might work perfectly for them, because they're looking at it through their eyes, not yours.
Right. Yeah.
Throw it out there.
I think it's so important. As you know, I work primarily in finance, in financing investment real estate, but I think it's so important to structure every deal so that everybody walks away feeling good about it. Nobody should feel like they got taken advantage of.
People should come out of it better than they went into it.
I'm gonna murder you. Do you understand? We're gonna have puppy soup for dinner. Be quiet.
Beside.
Well, would you like to share with folks how to reach you?
Sure. You can reach me. I'll give you my phone and my email. Okay. My phone, I'm in Arizona. Phone number is area code 928-533-6195. And I'm better reached in the mornings than the evenings. My email is M as in Mike, Weiss, WEISS 1031 @gmail.com. So that's mweiss1031. I seem to be in sync with the dog.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's perfect.
I love that your email address includes 1031. I immediately noticed that, of course, when you first gave it to me, but considering that your first major deal was an accidental 1031, I just think that's perfect.
I don't know how to recreate that all over again. I don't know if I'd be able to do it today, knowing more. Mm-hmm. I knew nothing then, and then Bill and some of the other people that I met said, "Try it." And I said, "Okay." Try it. There was an old commercial back east. I forget the product, but it was just, "Try it, you'll like it." So I tried it, and it worked. And I bought that 8-unit, and then I traded that 8-unit later on to a 16-unit.
Nice, very nice.
So
I love it.
It was just that's why I got lazy, and I went, yeah. I see all these people working so hard, and you're 2 moves away from at least a semi-retirement. And if I can help in any way, call, email, text. Happy to help.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for letting me, for putting up with my crazy dog. Next time I'll make sure that he's in the house before we do this. So, but you know what, folks, it's real life out here. We're not professionals in terms of creating digital content. We are professionals in real estate, and we want to share that experience and that knowledge with you. So if we can help you in any way, let me know, let Michael know. And just for funsies, I will share with you, since we have a clear mutual love of dogs, KFP Investors does give monthly to Guide Dogs for the Blind, and also a dog rescue here in the Nashville area called Wags and Walks. So you folks check into those organizations and help them out, because they need you. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.